Welcome, everybody. We will just give people 1 more minute to join. What did I say? Good morning? I wanted to say good afternoon. I'm not sure. And it's 6 p.m. and I would like to kick off the meeting now. Of course, people may join later on. I will let them in. That's not a problem. So that if you have friends that might be interested, you can still send them a message to join. First of all, let me introduce our presenter today. Let me welcome Geza Timcak on behalf of the EUI to present to you on the Talas and their impact on our life and also the remedies for these impacts. What you have to know about Geza. He has been a qualified yoga teacher since 1979 and is the president of the Slovak Yoga Association. He teaches yoga not just in Slovakia, but also in Hungary, all over Europe, like Zinal or Germany or France, and of course also in India. Today's topic is interesting because the same way as we receive inspiration through our chakras from the higher levels, we also receive impulses from the talas that are lower words, and these talas are located in our legs. And Geza will present to you what exactly, how to recognize these impacts and what we can do as a remedy to them. I would like to give the floor now to Geza, and I wish you enjoy this presentation, and I hope it's going to be a nice learning experience to all of us.
Thank you very much. As Karin has said, my name is Geza Timcak. I live in the Far East, that means in Košice, eastern part of Slovakia. Because, as you may know, from what already Karin has said, we cannot really avoid getting some impulses coming from the Talas, but before dealing with the details of this subject, we should first of all define or recognize what the Talas are. You know, in the Indian or the yogic way of perceiving life, it is acknowledged that life is going on multiple levels of existence. Now, there are different models which tell us how to get there, or why are we just at this present level of existence. But in any case, we are at the lowest part of the system of existential spheres where humans can live. Below the bhulokas, it is called in the Indian system. So below the bhuloka are the talas. Now, the talas, in fact, have two meanings. One meaning is the level of existence, and the other one is the name of a chakra, which is also situated in the human body. So here in this picture, we can see the 7 talas, and also we see these 7 chakras, which are all linked to definitive levels of existence. So the good news is that the 6 higher lokas, which are linked to the chakras, they always allow us to have a sort of uplifting or higher inspiration, whereas the talas, the tala chakras, which are situated in the hip area and below, they are the source of influence which is not so beneficial, but we will speak about it in a couple of minutes. So, what is the aim of this presentation is to show the potential consequences of our not being able to recognize this influence. And that we recognize also that the difficulties which we may have in getting through with some yogic inspiration, with having a life which we could call a dharmic life, it is nearly all due to the influence which comes from the talas. Why nearly all? Because we also bring with us a lot of difficult memories and difficult tendencies which we inherited within the let's call it the countless number of lives here or elsewhere, because humans can have also a higher incarnation when it is appropriate from the point of view of assessment of fulfilling or not fulfilling at least the majority of the tasks which we are given within a life. Now, the existential levels are vital for various reasons. One reason is it is always nice to get a nice inspiration. And we already know that the inspiration comes usually not from our own brain, but we are, so to say, able to listen to inspirations which come from the levels to which we are connected through our various chakras. So as in the Gayatri mantra, the full Gayatri mantra, we name all the 7 layers of existence where on the first 5 humans can live. So the inspirations also come from those levels which are usually above the ones which we live in. Now, when we look at the history of human lives in the Indian traditional literature, then we see that humans can really appear at various levels, and every level or life at every level brings us new experience. But whether we go up or whether we go down to a denser system, it depends on how we fare, how we are able to cope with the life situations, which everywhere has some challenges. And we know that accepting the challenges on whichever level is an organic part of our life. And many of the traditions, mystical traditions, speak about humans which and who are desiring to get into a higher level of existence, because many philosophers, many great yogis, many beings like Buddha was considering life on this earth full of suffering, even though we cannot complain really that much, because lives at different lower levels may be more arduous and more painful. So the manifestation of every level which is inhabitable is again related in many traditions. And one of the very interesting tradition is that which was channeled by Adama von Weil in the late 19th century. In fact, there is a book which is called the Spirit, Power, and Matter, which describes a very logical and very inspiring way of getting to understand how is it that we found ourselves here, and the essence of this relation is that if we make too many errors, then necessarily we are becoming unqualified for continuing to live on a higher level. But when we appear at a lower level, then usually we are given a support so that we come back. Now, what is the problem with the lower levels of existence? Well, we can see it ourselves. So we live in a world where, for example, a couple of hundreds of kilometers to the east from the place where I live, there is a war going on. And the war is always a very, very unfavorable process. I myself have lived through the end of the Second World War, and I know that my parents had a lot of problems to survive and to find a solution for all the problems which they had to meet. And this is one of the areas where the Dalek influence is perceptible, and we will come to that in a short moment. But here in this model, we can see that there are two types of beings. One is the firstborn, and second is the secondborn, and they differ in abilities. And the secondborn one, to which also the humans belong, they usually cannot go higher than the fifth level, the Janaloka, which is represented in this model of Adama von Weil, is the sons of the second order. This book is available both in German, it was written in German language, and also in Hungarian. A partial translation is also known in Czech language. I don't know about the translation into English, but what we have to note that every time the problem with a given level of existence is so high that it cannot function anymore, then in an act of creating new possibilities, another level of existence appears. But with all this burden also coming with those who have to live there, and we know how we have always to eat, which is not really the case in cases of some higher level of existence. You know that even Raman made a short verse that he was complaining to his prana, which is the ability to take in, that the prana never gives him rest and always wants him to fill his stomach with more and more food. And so we need a lot of items in order to survive. And we know from history that humans had to cope with the problem of dealing with difficulties through collisions, through antagonism, instead of finding solution through negotiation, through mutual understanding, and so on and so on. And we also know that this problem of ours is projected towards the environment in which we live, and we know that well, I wouldn't be able to guess how much, but at least 90% of our problems with the environment, which are not of natural, which do not have a natural cause, are caused by the humans and their mentality, which is so much influenced by the various talas, as we will come to it, that they don't even recognize that they are behaving in a inhuman way. So the book of Adorno mentions a term which is called repentance, but if we translate it to a yogic dimension, that we see that this is development of jnana. What is development jnana? That is getting to a point when we get melting into the being, to the absolute being, which is the aim of yoga. And evidently, it is not very easy. Here you see a Jainist model of the existential levels. And you can see that only that little green section is suitable for humans to incarnate, according to the Jaina model. So even if we consider that it contains 5 levels, still there is a number of other levels to which humans do not really have ready access. So when we go and look at it from the yoga point of view, we see that there are 2 ways how to cope with our situation. So one is we are living in the Bhuloka and try step by step getting a qualification for being admitted to higher and higher level of existence, unless we and until we reach the Janaloka, which is the original existential level of the humans. The other path, which is in fact the path of Atma Vichara, which was taught by Ramana Maharshi, is that without recursing to higher incarnations, we should be able to get also directly to this manifested Satchit Ananda. That means away from the existential level and just on the border between the manifested and unmanifested, let's call it level of existence, even though the unmanifest we cannot really examine because it is not accessible to examination. Now, what happens if we as humans would cause another catastrophe, environmental catastrophe, or whatever, say catastrophe in the world nowadays means that humanity may be wiped out. And what will happen? Well, a new existential level, more dense and lower one, should appear, the Nitambaloka, and then we would have to start again at this level, and then we have to cross one more level in order to get back to that level for which we have been actually, let's call it, created. So ideally, according to the yoga model, the absolute is within us even now, but we have a problem that our mind works in such a way that it floods our Chitakasha, that's system into which everything which we perceive from without and within is projected and creates a consistent world. And so we are not able really to neither find the source of our individual being, nor are able to transcend it, because that will be even more demanding, and realize the absolute or non-individualized being. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's impossible, but unless the mind is really willing to be quiet, and it will be quiet only if we cease to get interested in the various processes which are actually projected before our individual consciousness. So it's not a small task, but definitely, whether we want or do not want, sooner or later, we will be given always this advice by yogis, by other advanced beings, these firstborn ones, which happen to appear on our level, that we should strive to recognize all those influences which are non-conductive to efforts to get to a high level of existence. That means a level of existence where we have more freedom, we have a greater sense of completeness. And you know, this Vargaloka, which is third above us, sometimes it's called a sort of little heaven. So it is already a sort of heavenly surrounding, but it just means that it is like in the Old Testament when they describe the paradise, that you don't have really to work because you get everything which you need from the nature and you do not have any antagonism and so on and so on. But in that case, it means also that we have to keep our way of living in harmony with those principles, which we call in yoga the dharmic, dharma related principles, so that we survive on that level and we are not coming back again to a lower level. So what is our basic problem is that, first of all, we already lost a number of levels of freedom. Then the aspiration for the dharmic life is not really easy on this level. We can see it also because every country has a very complex system of legal procedures for keeping people within the limits of the law. Then we also lose some freedom because of the Stalic influence, about which we will talk about a little bit later. Now, we also know that the Devas, which is a type of the firstborns, and the Asuras, which are the beings also from the Stalic area, they very often got into conflict. And we know that one times these Ashuric beings, when they appeared on the earth and caused a lot of problems, then the Devas came to fight them, but they hide in the ocean, and so the Devas couldn't go to the ocean. Then they went to sage Agastya, who was a very known yogi, and so he simply drank the water of the ocean. And so the fight was successful to the extent that the earth again was ameliorated so that it was a livable place. But the problem was that Agastya Rishi couldn't give back the ocean which he has swallowed because he already digested it. So there is a very long story how the water came back to the earth. So this is just to say that humans not always were able to cope with the Talic influences. The Talic influences sometimes needed a help from the higher levels of existence. So as you can see here, the Janaloka is where we started our life. If you want to read more about it, then the Vishnu Purana is one of the sources when you can learn about it. And we also, you have also heard that the Svargaloka is already a very nice place. If we are allowed to come to life there, and that the Bhuloka is the one where we actually live. Now, we also know that the Bhuloka is the life on Bhuloka is limited by the Kanchukas. So the All Might is limited. So there is a limited possibility for humans to govern things. Then the Vidya, that means all knowledge is limited to very limited knowledge. Then Raga, the universal satisfaction, is changed to various wishes which cannot really be satisfied, because the moment you get your wish satisfied, you get another wish to have another satisfaction. The Gala, that means the eternity is suddenly appearing as time, and Niyati means that the all-pervasiveness is getting limited through the causal effects, space, time, and form. So it's not easy, but we still have to consider that for a long time, humans are still alive, still residing in the earth, so it can be done. Now, the Talic levels are listed here. This is Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Tala, Tala, Rasatala, Mahatala, and Patala. Now, the picture which is on the right shows Vishnu as depicting also in his lower extremities sort of symbolic images of what can be expected to find on the lower levels of existence. Now, the Vishnu Purana is telling a relatively very good news that it's not a hellish place, but the living beings who live there do not really have a very great affiliation to dharmic thoughts and feelings. The Bhagavata Purana also says that it has a lot of very nice places and aspects. Now, in the Uttara Gita, we see a more realistic approach from our point of view. And this is that he tells where the Tala chakras are situated, and that it is fearsome and like the fire at the time of Pralaya, which is the dissolution of the creation, like hell is the Patala, and so on. So there we can see that from the other point of view. So if you examine these levels of existence, you will find that in spite of the pleasures, luxuries, richness, they lack one very important and very significant aspect which we would need for a dharmic life, and this is aspiration on a vertical level, aspiration to develop spiritually, because they are simply satisfied that it's fine, it's easy, no sweat, no stress. So, but to tell, is it good or bad? No, well, it is pleasant, but it's not really good. Now, from this, it also follows that we should know where these marmas are, which are actually the contact points or the Tala chakras. So we will see that here are all the marmas, all the main marmas, and at the next image, this we already have seen, but now it is a little bit more visible that at the lowest level of existence, you see these nagas, the snake-like beings, and that Talas. So it is nice. And here we see the symbols related to the various levels of existence, and you can see that they are animal symbols. So therefore, the qualification of the quality of those lower levels are being symbolized by various animals. Now, if you look at a more detailed description of what type of life is there at the various levels, so we see that the Atala, it is the abode of the sexual entities in the form of colossal female demons. And now, how can it be important to us? Why can't they do whatever they want? Yeah, they will anyway. But, you know, in the history of humankind, we always see that wherever it's possible, humans have a tendency, in general, of course, not with everyone, but have a tendency to be very sexual. And we see a lot of problems even nowadays that this area of sexual identity, sexual intensity, cross-sexual intensity, and so on, is really gaining a very strong foothold. And again, here we can see that, yes, it may be that the influence of this Atala level is getting stronger and stronger. This is just a statue where you see on the thigh of this lady, again, the symbols are related to the Talas. Now, Vitala is the second level from above, and it has also a very interesting sexual connotation, but as you can see, there is a problem with living there, because the general state of mind is joylessness, and because of joylessness you have the anger, frustration, confusion, and resentment. What does it mean? That you cannot really be joyful if you are joyless, even though you have a lot of enjoyment. And from this joylessness, again, we see, yes, so an overdose of anger, frustration, confusion, and resentment may come, again, as inspiration from this level. So when we look at the citation from the Isavasya Upanishad, we see that the love for gold and gold mines makes these beings to feel that they are the owners. But in fact, the universal consciousness as such is the inverted comma, the owner. Owner in the sense, without it, this cannot manifest. And so, even though these beings on this level have a lot of golden jewelry, a lot of golden mines, it still doesn't give them joy. Now, the third level is Sutala, the fourth is Talatala, and so here the demon king Bali is living. This is a very interesting story related to it, but it would be too long for us. There are beautiful temples and buildings, but the temples are not really devoted to the highest, so to say, aspects of consciousness. And the mental state is called feeling abandoned. So feeling abandoned is related to jealousy, feeling of inadequacy, confusion. So if we feel that we are abandoned, that naturally we are jealous of those about whom we think that they are not abandoned. And also we are confused why we are abandoned, even though it is not so necessarily for humans. It is true for the Sutala level of existence. Now the Talatala level is really related to powerful sorcerers, and there the instinct of extreme self-preservation, and the ideals are very materialistic, and so there's not much to add. That self-preservation means that I would prefer myself and my interest before anyone else, and this is we know not very good if we are to live in such an environment. The Rasatana is again the home of mighty demons, and the main feeling is here the feeling of being expelled, because at this level sometimes no wonder that they feel like being expelled from a better existence. So here even greater expression of the self-reservation is that the beings there are willing to kill the other one, and also they are following the way how animals behave. You can see here that I always wonder why people like making videos about, say, a lion just suffocating another animal, or two animals being in fight. Well, this is again the influence of this type of from this type of existential level. So the Mahatala is the sixth level, and here the Nagas are also living, and they like very much what they are expert in, the sports and arts of pleasure, whatever, and that they are afraid of Garuda, which is a sort of being which is half bird and half other conscious being, let's call it human. So the general feeling here is that whatever I want, I do. So it's I feel free to steal, or that I do not owe to anyone. I take whatever I need. I can be absolutely selfish. It's okay. Which also sometimes we can realize that this comes to us also on this level of existence. And Patala is the seventh. Now, as it is with the venomous snakes, the black poison is something which makes really life difficult there, and they have a feeling of hate and destruction, and they like torturing and completely being unreasonable. So we can see, so to say, the murder for the sake of murder. And there is a number of movies, and you can hear what is written there. That, oh, well, he is just killing people out of his fancy. So this is the influence of this level of existence. Now, when we look at the antidotes for the main points to be considered at the level of Atala, then the key is that, okay, even humans have the right for pleasure. This is something which is not the problem, but the extent and the way how we are getting the various pleasures is the one which we have to consider. So if we take into consideration, for example, that my pleasure cannot be again the pleasure of other person. If what I like is not, I do not make accessible to others, then it is not really nice way how to really communicate. Swami Vedabharati always was telling that we have to consider that if we arrive at a point where we get a unit of pleasure, usually it should be in such a way that we can share it with another person, depending on what this pleasure is coming from. Now, the Vitala, again, here we have more items to consider. So, for example, desire. Well, desires are always there. But as Sri Ramakrishna was telling that, yes, desire is good if it is directed towards getting higher in our own self-development. Then the goal, well, yes, there is nothing wrong with goal, but the problem is if we concentrate on just owning the goal and just building our own, so to say, golden treasure, and seeing this as an aim of life. Now, frustration, confusion, and joylessness, and anger and resentment, well, I think it doesn't need any commentary that this is something which we have to deal with through, again, moderation. That means, yes, every human being needs a certain amount of wealth in order to survive. And instead of being angry, if we have a sense of humor, or we develop a sense of humor, because not everyone is very, so to say, successful in having a humor, then we will not really get anger. If we share the joy with someone else, then surely we will get a feedback which supports our joyfulness. If we practice, for example, yoga, then our confusion step by step will be less. And so the desires would also be directed also to areas which cause a sort of uplift, a sort of mental or spiritual uplift. Now, on the case of Sutala, well, we have 5 main areas, and if we deal only with this sense of abundance, then we have to really realize that our relatives are standing by us, even though we cannot perceive it, even though we have some problem with them, because as a whole, the big family is always holding together. And as we could see at some of the holotropic breathwork session, that sometimes those deceased relatives, when they have a possibility to communicate with the living member of the family, they say that yes, we are very happy and we are thankful that you are doing and taking on yourself those things which we were not able to do. And then you see that you get the support, and also you get the support if you have some aspiration regarding the yogic development, that you have the support of the teachers, of whether living or deceased, because they are always monitoring whether someone doesn't need some help and is not in a position where he or she can accept the help. So therefore, if we also give support to others, that helps us to be able to perceive the help which we are getting, and in that way, this abandonness, which is one of the worst feeling which one may have, would not appear. Now the Talatala, we need to maintain what is called here the light, the prakash, the light in our mind. And how can it be achieved? Well, of course, sadhana, which means yoga practices. Then an effort to be ethical, because it's not always easy to find which is really ethical way of solving this and this problem, but we have to do our best. Then asteya, which means that we look around what is really something which belongs to us, in the sense, in microbiotics there is a very nice way how to determine how many apples belong to you. Step one is that you assess how many kgs or pieces of apples are produced by the country. Okay, you divide it by the number of inhabitants, and then you get how much apples is yours. Or you widen this circle to 5 kilometer, diameter should be 500 kilometers. So then you see, okay, so if something is not produced in my country, then from these 5 kilometer areas, it's just if I take this food or whatever it is produced there, which I can digest. So that is asteya, in the sense that I take care that I do not take more then really I should. Now, aparigrapha is again very difficult, especially nowadays when we need so many gadgets, we need so many things because we live in a complicated environment. But even there, we can determine that what is it that we can give away, even though I can say, I can tell that whenever I give away a greater number of books, then I have to buy them again because I discover that, oh, I now need it again. But that's life. You get out, you get in things as you need. Rasatala is again needing this feeling that our immediate social environment is supporting us. And so the feeling of social inclusion, so it means the feeling that, yeah, everything is against me, is something which comes from this area. Or if I did something which evokes this response, then I may have been inspired from the Rasatala level. And so if we care for others, then we will get more support and we will not be selfish. And because, you know, a basic level of selfishness, that means I also need something from which I can live. I need a space, I need some electricity, gas, and so on. But whatever I can, I share. Then Mahatala, there, it is important to realize that if we have some problems which are of the Mahatala type, then, and we feel like a leprous person, you know, a leprous person has a very, very unpleasant condition because as the various parts of the skin are falling away, it is really very, very difficult state. And the feeling that you are falling apart because somehow your life is falling apart. Well, first of all, if we accept that, yes, this present situation we cannot change, but we have to look for solution and never to identify ourselves with impulses which go against this, so to say, dharmic or ethic or social way of behavior. And we also, if we realize that, okay, I have to accept responsibility whatever I do, because even if I do not accept the responsibility, it will be on my account anyway. But if I consider, well, is it worth really doing this thing because I don't know whether it's proper or improper, then it's better to abstain from it. And in this way, we can help to counteract against this Talic influence. Now, the Patala is, as we already have seen, a very difficult environment, a lot of poison. And so what we can do, Patanjali himself said friendliness, a loveful approach to life situation. You know, if we react to an aggression with aggression, the result is conflict. But if we try to diffuse, because we are able to try to understand the other person or the situation, and try to be constructive, try to protect life, even though we know very well that finally every one of us has to die. But it doesn't mean that we do not protect life, and that we should avoid this high irritability, and we should avoid this making excessive pressure on the others, because that always will lead to problems. However, having said that, we can also look at these guardians. So you can see that a number of people are being handled by this wrathful guardian. Why? Because they think that denial of the absolute, so this horizontal way of life, and that destruction is something which is good. Well, they get a very bad response. But if we get into situation where there is denial, where there is negative destructive inspiration, then is the best possibility for us to demonstrate that no, we try to find a positive inspiration and positive solution. So we cannot expect that this type of guardians, so that means testers who are always presiding over difficult life situations, that they will bring us easy situations. But it doesn't mean that this is not true. This is William Blake's picture, that we always have the possibility to be guarded, be protected. And so you see that this ill influence, so this being is being chained so that it cannot reach completely to us, but the flames are already directed towards us. Now below the Talas is the Garbhodaka Loka, and this is a very nice place, but it is, so to say, the end of the inhabitable world. And so we come here to have a look where are the Talas, the Tala chakras situated. So we see that all the inscriptions are there. So now what is the importance of this? Well, because there is marma therapy in Ayurvedic medicine, then we can alleviate the tensions which accumulated at these various points, which are symmetrically placed in both legs, but for the simplicity of visual understanding of the image, I put it on one leg. So we can get these tensions released, but not permanently, if we do not discontinue collecting the inspiration from the lower world. Because, you know, like in the technique of the 2 ears, that yes, some information is coming to me, but I have the choice not to react to it. So it goes out the other way without a sort of bad reaction. Just a couple of days I went to buy a railway ticket to the station, and there is a place where the bikes are to be parked. Now there have been about 4 gypsies. So I thought, oh, that's not the best thing, because they didn't look like very fully conscious people at that time. But I changed it there and went. And before I left, one of the gypsies lifted up his eyes and smiled on me. I smiled on him. Okay, so when I returned, the bicycle was still there, and only one little lamp was missing. So this is something which you can gain by this mild diplomacy. Now, to sum up or start summing up the impact of the Talic life, is that they lack this vertical aspect of their life, in spite, for example, that Vishnu is within the mythological event that finally he was willing to support King Bali, yes, and Shiva was also supporting one of the rulers of a lower region, but still they are still satisfied with the illusion of sensual satisfaction, of richness, cruelty, and if we take up this, then we make our life more and more difficult. So this is where we see, we already talked about it, and sometimes it's asked, okay, but is it real? Well, we can see only the footprints, like these bear footprints, and from seeing the footprints, we assume, yes, the bear was there. So this is the way how it actually works. So we have the upper line is our personal reactions, which it flows from the situation and flows from the personality that we have. So we have a sort of impulse to do something which is not positive but negative. The moment we get a support, negative support from the Talic level of existence, because it is always there. It is not something which during night it sleeps and during day it is awake. So they just make it easier for us to identify with the negative or the destructive or the improper or the adharmic type of reactions. Now, if we recognize this, so to say, negative support, then we are able to deal with it. That means not identifying with it. So the general recipe is the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, which we already know if we study a little bit of yoga. This means we try to do what is our dharma. But our dharma usually shouldn't go against the dharma of another person. Even though there are exceptions, for example, if one is a professional soldier, then his dharma is very difficult. And you know, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna that you should not be weak, because those persons who are to die by your hand, they are already dead. So you just do your duty. Now, that's a very, very heavy sentence. And it means that if we have to protect ourselves, like our immune system is protecting us, then they deal with the invader microorganisms in such a way that they try to annihilate them. So if it is a protection, that's another one, but other situation. But generally, the human dharma should be not against the dharma of others. And so the artha, kama, and moksha is something which, so the moksha is one which is the crown of our efforts. That means to get freed from this illusion, which means that we think that everything which we look from our individualized, from the point of view of our individualized consciousness, is the complete truth, which is not the case. And we know that in Sri Chakra Sadhana, we can deal with a lot of problems related to influences of the Talas. We already told that Patanjali has a lot of good advances, training, purifying the senses, devotion, letting go into the creative source from which we emerge, the Ishvara Pranidhana. Then they should try to identify with the avidya, the asmita, and that we should not be attached to the raga and dvesha, and then we will not be afraid of death, and so the abhinivesha will not be a problem to us. So the Sangamam friendliness is giving great strength. Why? Because it evokes usually a friendly response if it is really coming from inside. Now, he also says that yes, anger, greed, and delusion should be avoided. And there is a number of special practices which within this couple of minutes which you have will not be able to go through, but if you are interested in the presentation, then I will send it to the host, and you can get them. I will ask just go to this universal antidote. You know, it is now almost a commonplace. Meditation became a very major discovery, so to say, of modern humans, that meditation is very good against stress, it's very good against some illnesses, and so on and so on. But it is also very good for the avoidance of infectants from this Dalek influencing. And so the majority of our illnesses, they come from our way of reacting to life situations, our dispositions, which are also not random ones. And again, there is very little other way how to deal with it on a personal level than to adapt to pranayama, which gives us a greater strength. If you are having a feeling of greater strength, then also the reactions are more consistent with a sort of dharmic way. Then meditation, which clears the mind. The mind needs to be cleared at least once, but the best is at least 2 or 3 times a day from all these various processes which will come through, because you walk on the street. Even though we do not may actually realize what type of influences jump on us, but meditation is something which we need for cleaning all this inner field, and so making our life really better, much better. And so we will also see what it means, what again William Blake has depicted, the chaining of the demon. So if we do not really react in the way expected by this lower Talas, then we are in a far better situation to lead a life which is more balanced. In the Old Testament, you have the example of Job. He was really a sort of victim of a contest, whether he will be able to bear through all these pains, and he was losing everything. So the discomfort, the losses are not really the causes of our inner disconnectedness, inner depressions, and so on. No, it is our reaction. So if we have a very good anchoring, which can be get through meditation, then it's really much more probable that we will be able to live a life which we are satisfied with within our possibilities, and our environment is also acknowledging. So that was about all which I could communicate on this very interesting subject. There is a number of courses, summer courses, where this will again be touched upon, but I just can wish that you had at least some inspiration in this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geza, for this very insightful presentation. I hope now we will have a chance at least to recognize influences coming from the Talas in our lives. Nevertheless, I would like to give the floor now to questions, if there are some from the audience. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if you are interested in asking them now. Or if you just do not feel like speaking up, you can also type your question to the chat. Looks like
hi,
your
Karin.
presentation. Yes,
Hello.
Patricia.
I just wanted to say hello, and thank you very much, Geza, for this very interesting and very deep insight, but I guess it requires some more studying to fully comprehend the complexity.
Yes, I can say you are right.
So would it be please possible to get this material through Karin, I guess, so that we have a look and eventually ask questions later? But
Surely,
it's
surely,
just,
yes.
thank you.
When we finish it now, the discussion, then I will send it to Karin. Yes,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you. And not just the presentation itself, but also the recordings will be shared with all participants. So do not worry if you missed something now, you will always have the possibility to come back to it. Thank you, Patricia. Any more
I would like
questions
to ask
or
you.
ideas?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Iris.
How are you,
Nice to see you.
everyone? There is a question was arising in my head about for the last few centuries, it was abandoned, seems to be. And how come nowadays we are more actually seeking for this answer that are really projected for us? I'm just curious about this time lapse and the gap of time that we in yoga world, it wasn't let's say practiced for a long time. And through Ayurveda, through the marmas, I know a few of the terms, of course, but mainly the whole system of it wasn't shown in many of the schools that I was attending. So if Geza can show or tell, it would be great. Thank you.
Sorry, can you a little bit be more specific? So
Yes.
when you speak about time gap and then you speak about the marmas, is it in connection or there are two questions?
Actually, two questions, yes.
Yes.
First, we continued practicing it in Ayurveda, but in yoga world, it was abandoned somehow for the last centuries.
Yes, you see, I cannot give you the answer, but there is in India, there is a dislike to work with the, for example, the lower levels, because generally the Indian way of understanding things is that we have to go higher and higher, but we do not always look at the shackles which we have at the legs, which doesn't let us go higher and higher. That's one. Second, you could see that some of the descriptions from the horizontal point of view of the various talas tell that it's a nice place. Even Narada, who's a great yogi, said, oh, it's wonderful. But yes, he didn't continue living there because this horizontal level of satisfaction is something which is nice, but you know, it doesn't give you the possibility to step and go to the higher levels. So the more critical references which we can find in the text, they say, yes, they are very difficult influences, and that the higher worlds sometimes get into a sort of conflict with these inhabitants of the lower worlds because they interfere too much with the life on the earth. So it is known that yes, it happens, but I don't know exactly why, but I guess that it is because the Indian mentality is that I will deal only with the higher levels which I can perhaps achieve, but I will not deal with the these lower influences. This is one thing. Second thing, is that it is true that you have to recognize it, and it's not easy. So it's not easy to always differentiate it. What is really something which comes from me, and what is really an influence which I just have taken up. A friend of mine, parents and the father, when he was looking at some samurai films, he for the next weeks he was just talking in this way, like he saw in these Japanese films. So he took up, living here in Košice, a way of expressing which was absolutely out of way of no one spoke like that here, and within a couple of weeks he also ceased to do that. So we adapt, and it takes some time before we realize that what we have taken up and that it's better to let go. So this is one thing, and the second is relating to this marmas and their effects. If I remember well this question, well, again, you may remember that this drop-like mineral applicators, so to say, they can be used, the hands can be used for gently massaging, because at these levels, just like in case of the chakras, at every one of the center, there is a capacity within the inner system of the human being to store information. So you lose up and lose out this information. So you feel more free, which is, you know, Ayurveda has a number of procedures which help to clean up. But if we are not careful enough, then within months, 2 or half a year, we are back at the same level. So it's not enough just to counteract. We have to make the preventive measures so that we are not so, but that we are able to recognize these influences very quickly, and second, that we do not identify them.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
I know from my personal experience that it is really a very good remedy to realize that your friends and your surroundings is supporting you. Nevertheless, if you are under this influence, it is extremely hard to realize this. So what would be your message to people who just are not able to realize this and are under an influence from the Talas? Because it's a vicious circle. If you are under the influence, you are not able to recognize it, and so on and so on. So how to break through?
The question is very good, but it's very difficult to give a sort of general answer, because usually the change happens when we are confronted with some major problem. And then either during a sort of breakdown, we suddenly realize that, oh, the support is there, or during the process of processing this feeling, which again we have to recognize that yes, it is not a real feeling, it is just a feeling which comes as an inspiration. And one of the very easy ways how to do it would be that you find that marma, that Dala chakra, which is responsible for that, and you try to get yourself or a qualified Ayurvedic practitioner who knows the technique to loosen it up, and then you are freed, at least for some time, from this mental difficulty. And if you wish, and surely you wish to do it, if you went to the Ayurvedic practitioner, then you can start strengthening the other feelings. So without loosening up this feeling of loss of support, there is not really much possibility to to get through it, because it's deeply within, and because it may be supported with some personality trait. Again, the recipe would be, apart from panorama meditation, also the massage, but not only massage, but the work with the Tala chakras through the marmas. And of course, you know, there are also special mantras which can be taken for Sri Chakra sadhana, which help to take away the low energy and replace it with a higher energy through the Sri Chakra sadhana practices.
As well as asanas.
As well as asanas, yes. In case of asanas, the difficulty is that it's not always easy to recognize now how to do the asana in such a way that this particular marma is being influenced in such a way that this accumulated energy plus information is being released from that. But it is possible, if you know, to recognize that in what way the asana should be performed in order to get that specific imprint removed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, looks like we asked everything we had on our minds. And so I would like to thank you very much for both your very elaborate presentation material and also the presentation you had. You shared your thoughts, your knowledge, even a couple of stories, and I believe this all will enrich our lives. So I would like to wish the best of luck to everyone who was here and who was listening to you in recognizing these influences and to using the right remedy to overcome those impacts as soon as possible. Wishing you a wonderful long weekend and hope to see you maybe at the next session of the spirituality program, or maybe also in Zinal in Switzerland in the last full week of August, where we will gather to celebrate the 50th Congress of the European Union of Yoga. See more on our website. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The same to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.